Hello and welcome back to my humble show. I hope you're having a great day, everyone. I'm your host for today and every other day, the Articulate Thinker. Hopefully, here to bring you art, articles, and articulation straight from Articulation Station. So be sure to like, subscribe, and enjoy the ride. Don't forget to turn on those bell notifications while you're at it. I'm having a weird day so far. Fell asleep early last night. Woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Decided to get some things done. Before I go to work, in less than an hour, I'm going to cover this. The latest on Travis King, the defector, I guess, whatever you'd call him, from the army into North Korea. Because apparently the army is too discriminatory. I don't know. From his lips to someone's ears. Here's a headline from Newsmax. Travis King wants refuge from mistreatment in U.S. Army. I have a few articles pulled up, some brief basics for you. Then I'm going to go back to an older article just so we can make sure we're up to speed on everything. I haven't covered this, at least not on this channel. I don't think I covered it on my other channel now. News Clips channel. Articulate Thinker News Clips channel, that is. I forgot what I was talking about for a second. Yeah. All my shows are over here, though. As per now. But yeah, like, subscribe, and enjoy the ride. Only if you want to. North Korea said that Travis King confessed to crossing into the North because of inhumane maltreatment and racial discrimination within the U.S. Army. What would be a better thing to say these days, though? State media reported on Wednesday the first public acknowledgement of the incident by Pyongyang. Hopefully I'm saying that right. So feel free to disagree with me. Let me know in the comments below what you think, what you know. If you know something I don't know, let me know. Then we can know it together. I feel like he's not the most believable character considering some of his crimes in the past. He was going to be held accountable to various extents, and he decided to take off by foot across the border into North Korea. I wouldn't do that. But then again, I haven't walked a mile in his shoes, have I? So anything is possible. I'm just saying. I don't tend to believe what he's saying. And considering where he is now at, he doesn't want to speak too optimistically, too positively about the United States Army now, does he? North Korea isn't exactly a close ally of ours. Sorry if I've been looking into the wrong camera. Here we go. All right. The soldier, Private Travis T. King, dashed into the North while on a civilian tour of a joint security area, JSA, on the heavily fortified border between the two Koreas. U.S. officials have said they believe King crossed the border intentionally. I mean, how would you cross it accidentally? It's possible. It's possible, especially if you do not know directions very well. I think he knew what he was doing, though. North Korean investigators have also now concluded that King crossed deliberately and illegally, there you have it, with the intent to stay in the North or in a third country, state news agency KCNA said. During the investigation, Travis King confessed that he had decided to come over to the DPRK, I believe that stands for Democratic People's Republic of Korea, as he harbored ill feeling against inhumane maltreatment and racial discrimination within the U.S. Army, KCNA reported. Using the initials of North Korea's official name. Yeah, okay, that's the end of the sentence, not the beginning. I put the wrong emphasis on that. The wrong tone on that. Using the initials of North Korea's official name. That's better. He also expressed his willingness to seek refuge in the DPRK or a third country, saying that he was disillusioned at the Unequal American Society. So he's not even over here in the American Society, but he's disillusioned at the, well, alleged inequality. Listen, we're far from perfect, but I'm not sure I would go that far, literally that far, over that particular border. It's kind of like fleeing Florida to go to California, if you know what I mean. Oh, man. To each their own, though, I suppose. In his case, he may not be able to make it back. But we'll see. So that's the end of that article. Very short article. Here's another short article from Reuters. Last one was Newsmax, in case I didn't say that. North Korea says Travis King wants refuge from mistreatment, racism in U.S. Is he talking about mistreatment, racism, which he experienced? Or is he talking about just this general sense that there is systemic racism or something like that, and therefore he wants to flee into North Korea, where everyone is much more loving, especially the government? Am I right? North Korea has concluded that U.S. soldier Travis King wants refuge there or elsewhere because of inhumane maltreatment and racial discrimination, and the U.S. and the military state media said on Wednesday. Not that I have firsthand knowledge of what exactly is going on in North Korea, but who does? They kind of keep that stuff on locked down, which is one of the reasons why we didn't hear from him for so long. It was the North's first public acknowledgement of the Army privates crossing from South Korea on July 18 while on a civilian tour of the Joint Security Area, JSA, again, on the heavily fortified border between the neighbors. U.S. officials have said they believe King crossed the border intentionally and have declined to classify him so far as a prisoner of war. So far. But of course, why would they when he is willfully dissenting or dissidenting or whatever the word would be? I'm not sure if I'm using those words properly. North Korean investigators have also concluded that King crossed deliberately and illegally with the intent to stay in the North or in a third country. Not sure what that would be. State news agency KCNA said. So is he currently being held somewhere, or is he just being watched closely? During the investigation, Travis King confessed that he had decided to come over to the DPRK as he harbored ill feeling against inhumane maltreatment and racial discrimination within the U.S. Army. He also expressed his willingness to seek refuge in the DPRK or in a third country, saying that he was disillusioned at the Unequal American Society. Now, this is all very repetitive, isn't it? Sorry about that. King was kept under control by soldiers of the Korean People's Army after his crossing, and the investigation was still active, the agency. So some people who were there and witnessed his sprint across the border, they have made statements. His family has made statements. I'm not going to get into the statements which people have been making. Ultimately, they're not all that informative because nobody really had firsthand knowledge other than the fact that they saw him disappear into the abyss and obviously become apprehended. Because not just any old American can run free, wild and free, in North Korea. In August, King's uncle, Marion Gates, told ABC News that his nephew, who is black, was experiencing racism during his military deployment, and that after he spent time in a South Korean jail, he did not sound like himself. I mean, that is possible. That is possible. And his family is likely going to say something very sympathetic to him. Can't necessarily blame them for that. But I have seen that he has gotten himself into trouble various times through no fault of anyone else. And he hasn't exactly wanted to pay the consequences on that. The KCNA report comes as North Korean officials cite racism and other social problems in America to push back against U.S. criticism, including a United Nations Security Council meeting to discuss human rights in North Korea on Thursday. Okay. Imagine that. Maybe we're making them better people, or at least a better country. I don't want to speak ill of the citizens of North Korea, except maybe him, depending on how believable he actually is. U.S. officials have said the North had not provided substantive responses to requests for information on King. The Pentagon said it could not verify King's comments as reported by KCNA and remains focused on his safe return. It did not address whether it had heard more details from North Korea. I might use this as a thumbnail. Had to pause for a picture there. All right. Now for the rest of the article. King's mother is concerned about his safety and appealed to North Korea to treat him humanely, a spokesperson for his family said. Oh, good on her. I don't know that he's going to get quite the welcome mat that Brittany Griner got when she was brought back at the expense of a warlord, essentially. That was a bit different of a situation, but she kind of asked for her situation too, didn't she? By using drugs, which were illegal in Russia. Hey, you don't want to do that, especially if you're an American in a time of war. Yikes. But this guy, he, unlike Brittany Griner, did not appear to want to come home. Did he not want to stay there in the army, or did he not want to come home to America? Which is the problem? Like when he talks about racism and discrimination, again, is he referring to something he has experienced that seems to have been alluded to a bit, or is he just referring to his overall ideology or his overall sense of the current state of things here in the States? That was alluded to as well, so I'm not really sure which it is. No specific examples were provided. If that information is out there, let me know in the comments below. Yada, 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 bing, bang, boom. It added that King's mother had been in touch with the Army and appreciated a statement by the U.S. Department of Defense that it remained focused on bringing him home. Though I don't know that a warlord will be traded for him. It added that King's mother had been in touch with the Army and appreciated... Almost read the same statement twice. The same sentence twice. The White House did not immediately respond to a request for comment. A spokesman for the United Nations Command, UNC, which oversees the border village where King crossed, said he did not have anything to add to previous statements, mentioning King's willingness to seek refuge in North Korea or a third country shows that it's still unclear where he wants to go. Maybe it depends on what's the easiest. But he already has shown a willingness to do things that are not exactly the easiest or the smartest. But yeah. Said Yang Moo-jin, a professor at the University of North Korean Studies in Seoul. Tae Young-ho, a former North Korean diplomat and now South Korean lawmaker, said state media's description of King as an illegal intruder rather than a voluntary defector. Defector, that's the word I was looking for. Defector. As well as its mention of a third country could suggest that North Korea might not be willing to hold him for long. So that's a possibility. Maybe they don't even want him. Too much spotlight on them. It raises the possibility that North Korea, for North Korea to send him to a third country where U.S. officials can pick up and bring him home if he wishes, he said in a statement. By the way, we know that North Korea does not like the spotlight on them unless they're firing off missiles inappropriately. How to classify the 23-year-old has been an open question for the U.S. military. Although he is an active duty soldier and the United States and Korea technically remain at war, factors including King's decision to cross into North Korea of his own free will in civilian attire appear to have disqualified him from POW status. As prisoner of war, of course. U.S. officials have said King, who joined the U.S. Army in January 2021, faced 2 allegations of assault in South Korea and eventually pleaded guilty to 1 instance of assault and destroying public property for damaging a police car during a profanity-laced tirade against Koreans, according to documents. So maybe he is being a bit discriminatory himself while complaining about being discriminated against. Maybe we have not just defecting, but deflecting going on. I just think that if you're going to complain about mistreatment, then you shouldn't be mistreating other people. You shouldn't be acting out and then turning around and claiming that your country is acting out. Speck in the eye, or plank in the eye. He was due to face more disciplinary measures when he arrived back in the United States. So, was that what he was running from? Disciplinary measures. He didn't want to face those consequences. King had finished serving military detention and had been transported by the U.S. military to the airport to return to his home unit in the United States. Instead, he left the airport and joined a tour of the border area, where he ran across despite attempts by South Korean and U.S. guards to stop him. So should we fight for this guy? What do you think? Yeah, so he waited until he was about to come home, and he was like, nope, I'm gone. Here's an article from Associated Press. North Korea says U.S. soldier Travis King crossed the border after becoming disillusioned with America. I would take quite a bit of disillusioning. I'll pause again for another picture in case I want to use this as a thumbnail. Haven't decided yet. U.S. soldier who bolted across the heavily armed Korean border last month did so after becoming disillusioned with the inequality of American society and racial discrimination in the Army. How long is this article? I wonder how much information is in this. I think there is some new stuff. Some newsworthy stuff, so I'll read a little bit of it. Scrolling on down, want to skip a few, 99, 100. Don't want to be too repetitious here. KCNA is a propaganda outlet, and its content is carefully calibrated to reflect North Korea's official line that the United States is an evil adversary. Take all of this with a grain of salt. Every country puts out propaganda of its own just because we have to keep everyone as loyal as possible. And I'm all for that to a certain extent. Feeling pretty patriotic personally. As you can see by the hat behind me. The United States, South Korea, and others have accused North Korea of using foreign detainees to wrest diplomatic concessions. Some foreign detainees have said after their releases that their declarations of guilt while in North Korea custody were made under coercion. And then again, some of them never make it home. Some of them die long before that or are used in camps, essentially, to work. Hard labor. A U.S. Defense Department official speaking on condition of anonymity because of the sensitivity of the matter said the U.S. had no way to verify North Korea's claims about King. The official said the Pentagon was working through all available channels to bring King back to the U.S. So all of this could be fake news, for all we know. This is 100% North Korean propaganda in its element. King, as an American citizen held in North Korea, has no sway in how North Korea chooses to cast its narrative, said Soo Kim, an expert with Virginia-based consultancy LMI and former CIA analyst. As for King's release, his fate rests in North Korea's hands. Perhaps the regime will try to bargain King's life in exchange for financial concessions from the U.S. More than likely, negotiations won't be easy, and terms will be dictated by Pyongyang. She said, the soldier's family said his mother, Claudia Gates, is appealing to North Korea to treat her son humanely, as we already read. She's a mom worried about her son and would be grateful for a phone call from him, family spokesman Jonathan Franks said in a statement. Lastly, She has been in touch with the Army this evening and appreciates a Defense Department statement that remains focused on bringing Travis home. Tae Yong-ko, who was minister at the North Korean embassy in London before his defection in 2016, speculated North Korea might release King eventually because it didn't immediately express its intentions of accepting King as a refugee in the North, and spoke about a third country resettlement. Be interesting if they don't even want to deal with him. Tae, now a lawmaker in North Korea, also cited North Korea's description of King as an illegal entrant, rather than someone who voluntarily entered the North. I don't mean to be too hard on this guy, but he did walk right into a trap there. He made the decision. He is a citizen of my country, though, so I'll be happy if he comes back. I'll be happy if any American comes back. Ultimately, but, maybe I'm wrong about his agenda, his motive. Maybe he truly had something to run from, and he's justified in all of his actions. Maybe, just maybe. Tae earlier said North Korea would be reluctant to hold a low-ranked soldier like King for long because he won't provide it with a high-profile U.S. intelligence and would require high costs and resources to manage his life. So he will not be much of an asset to them, much of a bargaining chip either. Some analysts have said North Korea might try to tie King's release to the U.S. cutting back its military activities with South Korea amid heightened animosities between the wartime foes. North Korea has conducted more than 100 weapon tests since the beginning of last year, many of them in the name of issuing warnings over the expansion of U.S.-South Korean military drills that it views as an invasion rehearsal. Next Monday, the Allies are to begin major annual drills, which North Korea views as invasion rehearsal. So yeah, they're not a big fan of the Korea of the South either. The leaders of the U.S., South Korea, and Japan are also expected to announce plans for expanded military cooperation on ballistic missile defense in the face of North Korea's evolving nuclear threats when they meet for a trilateral summit at Camp David on Friday, according to U.S. officials. Which should be interesting. On Tuesday, North Korea slammed U.S.-led plans for an open UN Security Council meeting on its human rights records as despicable and only aimed to achieve Washington's geopolitical ambitions. Sorry, I'm trying to rush through this. I have to rush off to work in a few minutes. North Korean Vice Foreign Minister Kim Sun-jong said the council must first deal with the American rights issue, calling the United States a depraved empire of evils. In a statement carried by state media, Kim accused the U.S. of fostering racial discrimination, gun-related crimes, child maltreatment, and forced labor. Some of this is all about spinning a narrative. There's no other way to put it. We like to call out the sins of our neighbors in other countries, and therefore not really our neighbors. But our opponents, our enemies, our competition, as some would say. King 23 was among about 28,000 U.S. troops stationed in South Korea as deterrence against potential aggression from North Korea. At the time he joined the civilian tour and crossed the border, he was supposed to be heading to Fort Bliss, Texas, following his release from prison in South Korea on an assault conviction. There's a link to an article about that here. U.S. officials say he has been declared AWOL, rather than POW, of course, which can be punishable or punished by confinement in the brig, forfeiture of pay, or dishonorable discharge, with the severity based on their time away and whether they were apprehended or returned on their own. So he will only face more consequences now if he ever comes home. Though people may be so happy to have him back that that will not happen. I don't know. The U.S. and North Korea, which fought during the 1950 through 1953 Korean War, are still technically at war since that conflict ended in a truce, not a peace treaty. They have no diplomatic ties, and Sweden provided consular services for Americans in past cases, though Swedish diplomats reportedly have not returned to North Korea since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. Such pandemonium in the pandemic. I have this article pulled up as well, but I'm not going to read it. North Korea says U.S. soldier was sick of unequal American society. I feel comfortable skipping this article because it's from the Washington Compost. Throw that one on the compost heap and move on. This is an older article from July 19. This is from the Daily Mail. Backtracking a little bit here for a bit of the backstory in case you haven't kept up with it all. I haven't kept up with it all that much. There hasn't been much to keep up with, though. Hasn't been a lot of news. Mostly speculation after the initial news of his border crossing endeavors. Chilling photo captures U.S. soldier Travis King moments before defecting to North Korea while visiting border with tourist group as rogue nations stay silent on whether he's still alive. Well, according to them, he is still alive. According to them. I guess this is even somewhat speculative because, again, the potential for fake news. So, the summary of this article, a picture shows Private Second Class Travis King, 23, enjoying a tour of the high security zone moments before he made the mad dash into North Korea. Sorry, my morning alarm is going off. Turn it off. There we go. Mad dash into North Korea. The soldier had several run-ins with police in South Korea before the bizarre incident. It has emerged. Fears grew for his welfare on Wednesday after North Korea had still failed to produce him. So I can skip some of this because it is between the initial news and the most recent news. And it's just speculation about whether or not he was even alive. But Private Second Class Travis King, 23, is seen wearing a black t-shirt and hat purchased from a gift shop at the demilitarized zone as he peers across the border into the secretive communist country. So here is that photo. And he is circled on the screen. Pictured during the tour moments before his dash across the border into North Korea. I can't remember who exactly took this photo, but someone who I believe has spoken out about what they saw. But like I said, I'm not going to get into the statements. Don't have time to dig through any of that. Another photo for you. Here's a map. King crossed the border during tour at Joint Security Area, JSA. PVT Travis King is escorted to Incheon International Airport for flight to U.S. Well, he was. So much for that. A news clip there. Not going to play that. Here we go. He had served 2 months in prison for assault before his release in July and had been escorted to an airport by U.S. Army officials to return home for military disciplinary proceedings. But after they left him at the airport security, King left the terminal and went on to the tour. So it sounds like this is something he was planning for a little while. Maybe even while he was serving his time in prison over there. So he assaulted someone, ended up in prison for 2 months, and then, did I say 2 years earlier? Regardless, 2 months, and then after that, the rest is history. His motive is somewhat a mystery. Though I'd say that reporting is probably pretty accurate. The U.S. military was scrambling to establish the fate of King, whose actions have thrown Washington into a new crisis in its dealing with the nuclear-armed state. U.S. officials said on Tuesday that King crossed willfully and without authorization. His motive for the high-stakes gambit remains unclear. at least at that time. The tourist who witnessed King's crossing and took the photo of the soldier, Sarah Leslie from New Zealand, said she initially believed it was a stunt for TikTok. Okay, so we are getting into the statements a little bit. Leslie and her father, tourists from New Zealand, were part of a group that left Tuesday morning from Seoul to visit the demilitarized zone that divides South and North Korea. King was among a group of 43 tourists, although he was casually dressed in jeans and a black t-shirt, and she had no idea at the time he was a soldier or in legal trouble. So maybe he was trying to avoid the appearance of his status as a soldier. I don't know if he had his actual army attire available to him or not. Leslie said her tour group went a step further than many by visiting the joint security area in the village of Panmunjom, allowing tourists to effectively step on North Korean soil inside one of the buildings, which are jointly held. To get on such a tour, she said, required submitting their passports and getting permits in advance. The group left Seoul by bus in the early morning. Leslie noticed that King was traveling alone and didn't seem to talk to others on the tour. At one point, she said he brought a DMZ hat from a gift shop. Bought and brought. The tour was nearing its end Tuesday afternoon. The group had just walked out of the building and were milling about taking photos when she saw King running really fast. I assumed initially he had a mate filming him in some kind of really stupid prank or stunt. Indeed. Like a TikTok. The most stupid thing you could do, Leslie said. But then she heard one of the soldiers shout, "Get that guy!" Leslie said the command was shouted by an American soldier, one of the group that patrols the area along the South Korean troops. So maybe they wanted to catch him before it was too late. And this was Sarah Leslie here. It seems she is the tourist who took the photo. There's a clip of her talking about it all. Not going to play that. Not going to stay here too much longer. How much is left? Not too much. Let me see if I can speed read it. But the soldiers didn't have time to respond. She said that after running about 10 meters or 30 feet down a narrow passageway between the distinctive blue buildings, King was over the border and then disappeared from sight. It was all over in a few seconds. Leslie said she didn't see any people on the North Korean side. The tour group had been told earlier the North Koreans there had been laying low since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. So maybe they didn't catch him immediately. Maybe he ran wild and free for quite a while. Maybe he still is. I'm not sure. After King ran, she said the soldiers hustled all the tourists into a building and then took them to an information center to give statements. She said many of the tourists, including her father, hadn't seen King run, but a soldier explained the events to them. People couldn't really quite believe what had happened, Leslie said. Quite a few were really shocked. Once we got on a bus and got out of there, we were all kind of staring at each other. King's mother, Claudia Gates, said last night she was so proud of her son and added, "I just want him to come home, come back to America." You're proud of him for doing that? Or just generally speaking? Gates from Racine, Wisconsin, said, "I can't see Travis doing anything like that." Maybe he wasn't in his right state of mind. Maybe he got messed up over there in prison. 2 months in prison. Maybe that's the place where he experienced the racism and discrimination. That is possible. I'm not going to be surprised if there was some mistreatment. But in that case, you would think he would be more willing to come back here rather than burrowing his way further into the heart of, well, likely discrimination. Court records reveal King pleaded guilty to assault and destruction of public goods stemming from an October incident, and on February 8, the Seoul, Wisconsin Western District Court fined him 5 million won, or $4,000, according to a copy of the ruling reviewed by Reuters. Two U.S. officials who spoke on the condition of anonymity said the soldier had been due to face disciplinary action by the U.S. military. It's not clear whether the disciplinary action was linked to his conviction over damaging the police vehicle. The Seoul court said on September 25 last year, King punched a man in the face at a club several times, but the case was settled. 2 weeks later, on October 8, police officers responded to a report of another altercation involving King and tried to question him. He continued with his aggressive behavior without answering questions from police, according to the court document. Police placed him in the back seat of a patrol car where he shouted expletives and insults towards Koreans, the Korean army, and the Korean police, the ruling said. During his tirade, he kicked the vehicle door several times, causing about 584,000 won, which equates to $461 in damages, the ruling said. The court said that the defendant had admitted to the charges, had no previous criminal record, and paid 1 million won, or again, $790 to fix the vehicle, citing reasons in favor of him in the sentencing. Before I spiral out of control any further and end up running across the border, let me wrap this show up. Yeah. All right. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Feel free to disagree with me on anything I said. Let me know in the comments below what you think, what you know. I gotta go. Peace.